In today's video, I'm going to discuss 10 strategies that I have used in my antique booth to nearly double my sales. I think that these strategies will also help you if you are experiencing slow sales. If you agree or disagree or just have any questions or any comments at all, please leave those in the comment section. At the end of the video, I am going to do Q&A, and what that means is I will take viewer questions from previous videos and answer them during the Q&A session. Alright, so I started selling vintage in my antique booth in the year 2016. These are 10 things that I have learned in those 10 years that have really helped me to boost my antique booth sales. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you will know that I mostly sell vintage, but I guess I'm a little old-fashioned. I still call my booth an antique booth. I'm trying to get used to that word vintage booth, but honestly, everyone in the business that I know still calls it an antique booth, and our store is called an antique store, despite the fact that we sell a mixture of vintage, antiques, and some new stuff as well. Alright, my first strategy is to simply move stuff around. That can be something as simple as taking a teapot and moving it from one spot in the booth to a different spot in the booth. It's just one of those strange things that us vintage resellers sometimes joke about, like how strange is it that you could have something for a year sitting in your booth, and just by moving it to another place, for some reason it sells. Now, this is true even though my antique booth is located in a tourist town. What that means is that most of our customers are not regulars, so they have no idea that the teapot is in a new spot, right? Because they've never been there before. But for some reason, it still works. So strange. Okay, the next one is, and this is just sort of like going a little bit further than just simply moving smalls around. The next strategy would be to do a complete reset of the booth. Now, this is going to be more work because it could mean, moving furniture around or taking furniture out, taking it home and putting different furniture in. I don't sell furniture, so when I do a reset, what I like to do is completely redo my focal point. I recently did that by making a plate wall. I learned just by listening to other viewers in the comment section that people are into the more fancy Victorian styles again because of British shows on Netflix. People are just into these fancy floral Victorian styles. People are buying fancy china again. People are, and I've personally experienced, blue and white china is just flying out the door. Red and white china is even hotter, but harder to find. So what I did recently was I redid my focal point by making a plate wall. So that is an effective strategy. Make the booth look fresh and different. Okay, number 3 might be a little bit controversial, so let me know if you don't agree, is to run a sale. You could have a 20% off sale or a summer sale or, something like that, or a sale after a holiday to try to get rid of your holiday items, or just an entire booth-wide sale. For some reason, when people see that word sale, you're going to be able to increase your sales. However, the reason why this may be a little bit controversial is, of course, because by running that sale, your profits are going to be a little bit lower on each item, but if you get like a big response to your sale, it should make those numbers work out in the long run for your profits. All right, number 4 is add lighting. Make sure that your booth is warm and bright and inviting. I had been meaning to do this for years, and I finally did it. My husband helped me with this. We added those LED strip lights, and they're a tape light, so they have a good strong sticker on them, and I will show you a video clip here of what it looks like. I had several other people who work at my store comment that they loved them, that they were feeling inspired, that they wanted to get some too, and that they were sure that I would see an increase in my sales. Prior to that, I had a couple of shop lamps just shining down in various areas. If you sell furniture, you could also use table lamps on top of your furniture to add lighting. But I'm telling you, these LED lights, they don't use a lot of power. For one thing, they're eco-friendly and they have a really good sticker on them, so you could basically put them anywhere. I still need 2 or 3 more strands of these lights, and my plan is to add 2 more strands this coming weekend. Alright, number 4 is to use other platforms such as Facebook Marketplace or Instagram to let other people know what you have for sale. I personally used Facebook Marketplace quite a bit when I was flipping furniture. I no longer really flip furniture, and my goal for my business was to be able to make it financially just on smalls alone and not to have to flip furniture anymore. That's just a personal choice. But when I did, I would use Facebook Marketplace to let people in a very wide audience know that I had this piece of furniture for sale and where it was located. So when you're dealing with Facebook Marketplace, obviously you're selling something to a complete stranger. And so those people would actually come to the antique store where I had a booth, and that would be a place for a, safe, secure transaction. Now, of course, that did also mean that the owner of the antique store did get her 10% commission on my piece of furniture because we ran it through the store. So, these are all just things for you to take into consideration. I have put things on my Instagram page. It's also called Julie's Vintage Love, same as my YouTube channel, just to let friends who are interested know that I have these things, and I generally do that before I put it in the booth. And then you can just take payment however you want to take payment, and they can pick it up, or you can ship it, or whatever it is that you want to do. Alright, number 5 is to remove stale items. If you have had something in your booth, and I'm guilty of this, for like 3 or 4 years and it hasn't sold and you haven't removed it, maybe it's time to remove it, because most stores do have regulars, and even though our store is located in a tourist town, we definitely have some regulars. They notice when an item has been sitting there for a year or 2 or more. I don't really have anywhere else to put my stale items. I know that a lot of my friends, if they have an Etsy shop, they'll take stale items out and put it on the Etsy shop and see if it sells, or they'll take it out and put it in a different booth in the same store or another booth in a different store. So yeah, taking stale items out works because your customers notice when things have been sitting there for a long time. It just gets stale. It just starts to be uninteresting, and it's just time to move those things out. This one area where I need to take my own advice. I hate taking stuff home, and since I don't have another platform to put my stale items in, it basically means that I'm just going to donate them back to Goodwill. Alright, number 6 is to recognize and decorate for holidays. So offer seasonal items. I generally do this mostly for Christmas and Easter. I also always put out fall displays because, oh my gosh, in North Georgia, where my antique booth is located, fall is the most beautiful time of year, and it is the most busy time of year for us because we have lots of people coming to visit us for the changing of the leaves and all kinds of stuff. The weather's just amazing. So I definitely decorate seasonally. One thing that you can do right now is decorate for July 4th, 2026. Our country is celebrating 250 years as a country. I'm going to show you a little clip of another booth in our store. It's not my booth, it's Nancy's booth. And I recently did a video of her whole booth, like a booth tour / shopping video. So I'll show you a video here of the nice job she did with her 4th of July display. Decorating for the 4th of July holiday that we have coming up does not mean you need to go out and buy a bunch of, patriotic items. You can literally look around your booth and see what you have in red, white, and blue. So I know for me, it would be fairly easy for me to find some cobalt blue glass, some ruby red glass, and some clear crystal. And then I would have my red, white, and blue, since I tend to source a lot of kitchenware, glass, and vintage home decor, hard goods, basically. Alright, number 7, if you are located in a tourist town, have some type of trinket that you sell or souvenir that you sell that will remind people of their trip to your town. So in our town, I know that people make little keychains, little shot glasses, Christmas ornaments that say Ella J. Georgia on them. I have also made my own soy candles, and I make sure to put on the label that they were hand poured in Ella J, Georgia, so people have a nice organic soy candle that was made in Ella J. So people really appreciate those items, and they will definitely buy them. Number 8 might also cause a little bit of disagreement, but I believe that you should have something in your booth for kids. Now, the reason that some people disagree with me is because they think if kids come into their booth that things are more likely to get broken. Honestly, in all of the years I have been doing this, I've had very few items that showed up broken. So what I have for kids is Beanie Babies. We find that strange to think about the fact that the 90s are vintage, but they are. And I also have vintage toys. I really like Vintage Play School and Fisher-Price. But having something for kids, when the kids spot my Beanie Babies, they want to go in the booth, and guess who also goes in the booth? Mom and dad or grandparents also come in the booth and take a look around, and they're more likely to buy something. And they buy a Beanie Baby because a lot of parents will tell their kids, okay, you can pick out one thing, that you can get, and they'll choose a Beanie Baby. Alright, number 9 is give people ideas on how they can use your items other than just the original intended purpose. Here are some examples. A vintage anchor hocking green ashtray. Since a lot of people don't smoke cigarettes anymore, these make great front door catch-all trays for keys and wallets, or trinket trays. Other things that are commonly used for purposes that they weren't originally intended for. Here is a vintage decanter. People are apparently using these for mouthwash in their bathrooms. Here is an example of an item that became stale, and I took it out of my booth after it had been in there for years. It's a candy dish, an egg-shaped candy dish, and it's really pretty. I'm currently using these for the little tablets that I use to clean my Invisalign retainer. So it's just a nice way to store these on my dresser. I don't have a bathroom big enough to have like a big vanity in the bathroom, so I can't really do all this fancy stuff like with mouthwash and things, but I have this on my dresser in my bedroom. Now that crystal and clear glass seems to be making somewhat of a comeback, I'm actually just thinking about putting this beautiful candy dish back in the booth and seeing what happens. A lot of people don't really keep candy out anymore, but giving people ideas of what they could use this for other than its original intended purpose is going to help you boost your sales. Another very common one is like pitchers are commonly used to hold flowers. So things that were not originally intended to be vases can be used as vases for flowers. And number 10 is to offer competitive pricing and to offer things at multiple price points. So what I aim to do in my booth is pretty much everyone who's shopping for vintage and antiques is going to be using Google Lens and going to be researching to see how much they can buy these items for that they're looking at in your booth, how much they can buy them for online. When I say competitive pricing, I mean I'm actually trying to beat the seller because I want the person to buy it from me. So I am looking at not only what the item is listed for, but also how much the shipping is going to be, and then I am able to beat that because I don't have to pay for shipping. That's how I encourage people to buy it from me. Not only are they getting a better price, but they can see what they're getting right there, and there's no danger of it breaking in transit, and the person gets the immediate satisfaction of getting the item right then as opposed to having to wait for it to be delivered to them. And then offering things at multiple price points. You should have things that are around the $5 or $6 range, things that are around the $20 range, and all the way up to your most expensive items, which is probably going to be more like artwork and furniture. So you want to have things for people who are coming in to spend $5 to $10, and also things for people who are coming in to spend some money to actually decorate their house. So offer things at different price points for different types of shoppers. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and that you found it helpful. Again, if you have anything you would like to say, comments, questions, please do so in the comments. I respond to all of my comments. So without further ado, let's move on to Q&A. The first question comes from Wanda, and she says, enjoyed the video. how well does Tupperware sell in your booth? Okay, so it's funny, but one of the Tupperware things that always sells like comically quickly are those light green Tupperware Jello molds. They just for some reason fly out the door. People love them. I like Tupperware, and for a long time I would say, Tupperware was selling for me, especially if it was in the pastel colors like the pastel green and peach and stuff. Tupperware has slowed down a bit, and it may just be because the colors that I have are not as appealing. Mostly what I have left is like the harvest gold color, and I'm just kind of finding that those 70s colors are kind of going out, and the pastels and the more flowery colors are what's in right now. All right, the next question is, how do you find out about estate sales? And that comes from Heaven on a Stem. Okay, so to find out where estate sales are going to be held in your area, go to estatesales.net and you'll just plug in your zip code and you will get weekly emails. It's actually more than once a week. Estate sales are generally held on weekends, but you will get an email every single weekend, and then you can just sort of sort. I honestly just go to estate sales that are close to my house because, they can be hit or miss, they can be too expensive or whatever, and I don't want to waste a bunch of time and gas driving a long way to an estate sale. So I generally stay within 10 miles of my house when I shop estate sales. But the answer to that question is estatesales.net. The next question came from Judy Holzlander, and this question she posted 2 weeks ago. It was before I actually built my plate wall, but I've been talking about my plate wall for a long time because I knew I wanted to make one, and I had purchased some of those things, those plate holders with the springs on them. A couple of people had said that I wouldn't use those. Those can cause stress cracks in your dishes. I'm not sure if they would or not, but Judy said, have you considered a plate rack? They hold as many as 4, and they don't require those holder things. And why not make a card explaining the provenance of your painting to attach to it? Okay, so there's 2 questions there. So I did end up using 2 plate racks to make my plate wall, and only used, I think it was 4 of those spring-loaded plate holders. So I appreciate her suggestion, and I like the way that it looks with the plate rack. And for the painting that I took out, I didn't have room for it anymore once I made my plate wall, but I did have an index card on it explaining the meaning of the painting because it was a local artist and because the picture of the grist mill that was in the painting was originally from Blue Ridge, Georgia, which is the next city north of Ellijay, Georgia, where my booth is. So yes, I did have an index card explaining the significance of my painting. I'm not surprised that it didn't sell in the 6 weeks or so that I had in there. Artwork is a slow sell for us because of the reason I've already mentioned. We're a tourist town. A lot of people are just coming in and they're traveling, so they're not really buying big things. Some people are even flying on planes, so they're looking for smaller items. So I'm not sad. I still have my painting, and I will probably put it back in the booth one day, and I will have the index card attached explaining the significance of the painting. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content. I'm coming up on a really big milestone. I'm coming up on 10,000 subscribers, so that would just be huge for me. I appreciate your support of my channel so very much, and as always, I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.